fighting these time wizards. I need to eat some.
Well, what do they actually do? The eye drops?
Yeah,
I wonder.
yes. There are chronons in the eye drops.
That's true.
I'm going to take my eye drops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait to talk about it next week.
Yeah, we can't talk about it just yet. On GameSpot.com, we have a bunch of preview videos up about it. We did some live streams of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 with the best embargo listing description I've ever seen in my life. Last week, we were allowed to play the game Chapter 2 up until the point that Toto's Africa played.
Oh. Why is it that song keeps recurring or reappearing in things that we do?
Right.
Because it's still the closest people have gotten to perfect musically.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Vice City did it. It's all been uphill since then. Anyway, we're not here to talk about old Grand Theft Auto games from 2000 and guess when was Vice City when did it come out? Guess, listeners.
2003.
What are you gonna say?
I was going to say that.
We're not gonna go past
I'm going
you.
to undercut you. 2002.
I was gonna say 2003 as well. It came out in 2002. He's right. There you go. October. That's your Vice City information for today. Thank you so much for watching the show. If you're watching live on twitch.tv, I'll be keeping an eye out for questiones. If you're watching this on demand, thank you so much. Put your comments in the comment box below. If you're watching this in your ear holes, thank you so much for subscribing to the lobby on iTunes or Stitcher or any other of the weird podcast things that are out there, like Chrono. That's probably one, right?
Sure.
I bet it is. I bet in Watch Dogs. I bet in Quantum Break.
Sure.
They have their own podcast feed thing in there. That's what you watch the TV show on.
I bet.
It's called Crontunes. Right? Cronflix.
Icron?
All right. Let's talk about real video games. Let's talk about Overwatch. Everyone's talking about Overwatch. But we're not going to talk about that part of Overwatch. Let's let that spat continue on Twitter. What I want to talk to you about, Mike Mahardy. I've been playing Overwatch for the past couple of months. In the beta, it's coming out in a couple of months' time.
May 3rd.
May 3rd, just around the corner.
Yeah.
A couple of corners, but just around a couple of corners. But we've been playing predominantly on PC. Most of the gameplay we've seen has been PC, but you got to go down to Blizzard and play it on consoles.
Yeah.
So I guess, first of all, what did you play it on? Xbox One or PlayStation 4?
I played PlayStation 4. Dave over in the UK did Xbox One.
Dave Jewett.
Yep.
Nice.
And yeah, I played about 3 or 4 hours on PS4. It feels good. Like you'd expect. The default aiming sensitivity felt a little slow, but I think that was mainly just because I was so used to playing on PC, where you could do a 180-degree turn in no time flat.
Yeah.
But even so, the game itself is designed to be very fast-paced, so I think a lot of people might be turning their sensitivity up, even if you're not normally accustomed to that. Because most of the character abilities are kind of tailored for this really, in some cases, twitchy gameplay, like Widowmaker. I'm sure the sniper people are really good on PC with her.
Yeah.
On console, it's going to be a little more, adjusting if people were used to PC. But
have they changed any of the heroes' abilities? Because Widowmaker is the one that you play Widowmaker like you play Counter-Strike.
Sure.
It's straight aim down sights. There's that charge on the sniper rifle, but it's pretty much like
Hanzo almost.
Pinpoint. Yeah, same thing on Hanzo. But for instance, Winston, the big ape, he's almost like one of the easier characters because his gun essentially just connects to anyone who's around it. So that's one that would be simple on consoles. But are they changing any of the tweaking characters that it seemed like? Or
no, I mean from what they've told me, from what I played, it was very similar, or it was the same thing. From what they've said, they're even gonna they're gonna be updating it simultaneously on all platforms. They said they'd be open to crossplay between Xbox One and PS4 if that actually happens. But they've said this a few times. They're not gonna do PC console because that would just be a bloodbath. Yeah.
They don't want the Dreamcast Quake 3 thing to happen again.
Right.
Where it all goes
I'm waiting for that one publisher to be like, we do not want crossplay between PS4 and Xbox One. What publisher is not going to say that that's what they want?
Yeah,
Of course it's
exactly.
good.
Yeah. We want to.
Right.
Just want to interject with that real quick.
Yeah. So
I know.
So how does it? I guess if it's not, it must have felt like it was playing at a slightly different pace, right? Because I guess it's hard to tell because if you play with noobs the first time around, it's always going to be a little bit slower as well. Were you playing against Blizzard folk? Were you playing with other journalists or YouTubers? What was it like?
It was journalists and YouTubers,
Okay.
But they all seem pretty experienced. I consider myself decent at shooters, and Overwatch I've been playing a lot on PC, and I was, it was a challenge, but it was there were fun matches for this kind of event. I think everybody there was pretty well versed. There weren't too many times I really noticed major differences. There are certain times when the constraints of the controller, how many buttons there are, kind of felt a little weird as opposed to the keyboard, which you can map really well. Mercy specifically, you can switch from her staff, her healing damage buff staff, to her automatic pistol.
Yeah.
And on the controller, the default was to press right on the D-pad. So when you're in the middle of a fight and then you want to switch it, you have to stop moving with your left thumb. Or if like I started bringing my right thumb over before I remapped it, just because I could keep moving and not just get shot. But on the keyboard, I just usually map that to Q or something, which is really quick. So I'll definitely, there might be some finagling I might want to do when I map the buttons when the open beta launches. But I know it feels really good. It feels like they took their time with it. They've said they don't want to favor one platform over the other. That's another thing publishers would always say. Yeah. But yeah, like Diablo 3, I think they did a really good job of bringing it to consoles. It wasn't as fully fleshed out as PC. They don't have seasons, but it felt good.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is probably one of the first times they're going to try and do an identical launch for both PC and consoles for Blizzard anyway. And I guess the other side of this, how did it look? How did it play? What was it running in 60 frames a second? Did it look sharp?
Yeah.
I mean, the art style sort of lends itself to some sort of degree of scalability, it kind of looks like, right?
It was 60 frames. It looks, I don't notice any visual differences between this and PC. Maybe because I don't think the art style would really, it doesn't seem like an art style that you could really just jack up on PC for a noticeable difference.
I'm sure side by side there's probably like loads of, lighting and, aliasing and bits and bobs that are kind of not as sharp as they would be on PC, but you didn't feel like it was particularly like downgraded.
No. It was just a normal PlayStation 4, not this 4.5. But
we'll get to that later.
Yeah, but no, it looked great. I don't have any complaints coming off of a few hours with it. I think PC might be my preferred platform going forward.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure I'll have a few of those friends that won't be playing on PC, like back home, that I'd like to jump on PS4 or Xbox One with.
Yeah. One of the questions here, Samba 15 saying May 3rd on consoles if you pre-order, a couple of days if you don't. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways they're selling this actually at the moment. There's the Origins edition, and then there's like special editions and whatnot. Some of the pre-order bonuses for different character skins, all that stuff. I wonder if that's actually, if people are interested in that at all, the people who haven't actually had a chance to play it yet, because why would you care about skins if you hadn't actually picked who your favorite characters are. Last question on this: did you find yourself like favoring certain characters over other ones that you wouldn't necessarily on PC?
Yeah,
like I feel like Widowmaker. Bastion the turret was the one that was OP for a while, where it had the shield, and I feel like people have now gotten so good at Widowmaker that you can just destroy anyone if you've got a good sniper. So I kind of feel like they're going to nerf her anyway. But did you feel like less people were using characters like that?
Sure, yeah. I played Hanzo for one match, and I noticed someone else playing Widowmaker throughout the matches, so they seemed comfortable. But it definitely seems like Winston is one of the ones. Mercy. Those are some of the characters that I think, just for the purposes of the event, I gravitated toward, because again, I was used to those twitchier characters I was used to on PC, and there were some that just felt more naturally suited to the controller.
Right.
But I've been playing shooters on controllers for like a while now.
Yeah.
And Counter-Strike and Team Fortress 2 were the ones that I always think about when I'm thinking about PC shooters, and when I ended up playing both of those on consoles later, I got used to them pretty fast. So I'm expecting to adapt to all the characters, but there's definitely something to be said about certain characters working better on console. Like Winston, I think, is one a good example, just because he's so like melee leaping focused, and then like you said, his weapon pretty like gravitates toward people.
Yeah, sticks to them.
So I noticed that a little bit. Yeah.
Cool. Should be interesting to see. It's out May 24th, worldwide release from the good folks at Blizzard. Let us know if you're going to pick that up yourself, if you're going to pick it up on Xbox One or PlayStation 4, or if you're holding out for the PC version. Let us know in the comments below. Mike, you've played all the games. Peter, we're not going to talk to you at all for the first 20 minutes of this show, probably.
I'm just window dressing, man.
How do you feel about Overwatch?
I'm intrigued by it. I usually don't get into competitive shooters, but I do like the personality of the game. And having played a little bit of it at, I think it was PAX East last year, I enjoyed it. But again, I was going up against people who were seemingly really good, despite it just being an event demo, which kind of curtailed my enjoyment a little bit. So, we'll see. Like, it'll depend if I'm up to snuff when I try to play the game. But I'm curious. I definitely want to give it a shot.
That'll be interesting because it's like, it was like a month after Gears of War. If you don't get in straight away, then suddenly everyone's figured out everything.
Yeah, like
all online shooters.
I got into Titanfall long after the fact, and I was able to adapt to that game pretty well. But I don't know if that's going to be the same case with Overwatch, because it seemed to be far less forgiving than something like Titanfall.
I was playing with Chris earlier today. I love this. I really am enjoying Overwatch quite a lot. Like more than I've enjoyed an online shooter in quite a while. Like I feel like, growing up playing Counter-Strike and Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament and all these games, like I feel kind of bored by most first-person shooters.
Yeah.
But there's something about Overwatch. I think it's just a strategic variability that happens. Kind of like the first time you play Team Fortress, and you're like, oh yeah, there's like if we couple up these ones, except instead of there being whatever 8 characters, I forget how many in TF2, maybe 9. There's like this massive breadth of like 16 of them, I think, in Overwatch, or maybe even more actually. Maybe
21.
21
Yeah.
is it? Yeah, it's really interesting, like matching them all up.
I'll be curious to see what you think about Doom 3 multiplayer, because I played that and that was really fun. It definitely recalled something like Quake 3.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I actually need to play that because I've been super down on it since watching the trailers. Like, it comes across, maybe it's just the marketing, but it comes across like they don't know why Doom was good.
I don't know how I feel about the single player, but multiplayer was definitely good. And I went in there kind of with like lukewarm anticipation. I just kept getting back in line and keep playing it. So, we'll see how that pans out.
Sweet, looking forward to it. Another game that's out pretty soon. You've been playing for a couple of weeks now. I feel like everyone in the office has been playing a little bit of it. We had Mary Kish has been playing it. Eric Tay, they did some live streams a couple of weeks back. But Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
You're a fan. Tell me your Dark Souls lineage. Do you go all the way back to Demon Souls, or where did you come into this? Because I'm basically like a Bloodborne fan, and that's about it.
Okay, so aside from Demon Souls, I've beaten all the From games at least twice. I think Bloodborne, although it's probably it's one of my favorite From Software games now. It's probably the one I've beaten the fewest times, aside from Demon Souls. Demon Souls I beat once back in the day. Went through it almost twice, but I never completely finished like a New Game Plus. But yeah, I've had a sense of. I think Dark Souls 1 was my first one.
Right.
Then I went to 2, went back to Demon Souls. Bloodborne was my game of the year last year.
What's your favorite?
Probably Bloodborne at this point. Disregarding my review impressions on Dark Souls 3. Probably Bloodborne at this point, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Dark Souls.
Disregarding because you can't talk about it yet?
Yeah. Talk about it what? Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah, a week from now.
Despite the fact that everyone's streaming it online right now.
Yeah.
Well, we can't talk about the US version, what I think of that, until Tuesday.
So talk to me about the Japanese version that has been out that we've been able to talk about.
Yeah, it's as if I keep telling people that it's as if Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne kind of had a baby.
Okay.
It's very much like I played through my first playthrough without a shield the whole time. Which, Bloodborne was much twitchier. It was more of a knife fight as opposed to this like boxing match. I don't know but it's more of a, you can dodge very much more often, faster. I just poured it into endurance, which helps you dodge more, and strength. I started with a warrior, got through most of the bosses. Eric Tay he's fought, I think, a few more bosses than I have for sure. He's gotten to these secret areas that I've been meaning to go back to since I finished the game the first time. And I need to do that soon, but I have a lot of other projects, as we all do, going on. So I'm trying to balance that out because I want to get through the Japanese version as well. Which is, it's weird because they swap the dodge and the action buttons, so I'm sure I'm going to die a lot right away.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm going to be tapping circle and wondering why I'm just still getting hit.
Team Toaster 1132 says, I love the lore and story parts of the Souls games of Bloodborne. How are you enjoying that aspect of it so far?
It's just as obscure as they always have been, but this one does a pretty good job of setting up the overall structure. You're kind of the Lords of Cinder. There are 5. One who... Well, without spoiling anything, there are 5 Lords of Cinder, and then a certain number of them have like abandoned their thrones for a little bit. So you're just hunting them down to kind of link the fire, which is a common theme trope in Dark Souls. There's the Age of Fire, the Age of Darkness. You have to really look deep into this lore if you want to get much out of it. But I think for people who don't care as much, the story does a good job of structurally setting up what you're doing, like a Zelda game kind of. You're hunting down these bosses. These 4. There's not just 4 bosses in Dark Souls 3, but there are 4 major ones. And then, aside from that, it's very obscure, and still, it's more about tone than exposition, I think. And this nails the tone just like the other ones have.
It seems like anyone who's a fan of the Souls game at this stage is already sort of chomping at the bit for this. One of the interesting things I found about Bloodborne was that it appeals to, I don't know what it is about like resetting a franchise or like starting a new one over. It's a little less of a barrier to entry for people. Like I played Bloodborne and I felt it a lot easier to get into than I think I was imagining Dark Souls to be. Do you think Dark Souls 3 would be a good place for people to start who maybe have skipped out in the first 2 in Demon Souls?
Yeah, actually, I think I was telling Pete, because Pete has said he's been wanting to get into these games for a long time, which a lot of people do.
You've not played much of them, right?
So I played a lot of Demon Souls. I didn't finish it. Tried playing Dark Souls, and sort of the same problem I had with Bloodborne. The same problem I think a lot of people have, where they beat their head against the wall trying to learn the game and get good at it. You make a bunch of progress, and then you hit another wall.
Right, yeah.
And it's that instance where you felt like you made some progress and hit another wall that for me was just too much. But that's, time for me is really precious. If it was something like I had more time or it was an assignment, I would love to really focus in on that. But for Dark Souls 3, I'm really going to try this
Right.
time. I'm going to make it happen because I really like Bloodborne, and I kind of let that pass me by. Like, I still need to go back and finish that, you know? And from what you've told me, this sounds like it's a good way to get into the series for a lot of people.
Yeah, either if you're completely new to it, or if, like, even more so, if Bloodborne's the one that got you into it, this is probably the Dark Souls, weirdly enough, the third in the trilogy to get into it with, because I didn't find it's still difficult. I hit walls, but maybe it was just because I was kind of plowing through it over a course of a few days, whereas Bloodborne I let trickle over 2 or 3 weeks.
And I mean, once you've played this is like the fifth of these games,
Sure,
right? It's
yeah.
not like the same first time you played any of them.
Yeah, I think it does. Also, like, it's really good in that, in terms of directing you where to go. Dark Souls, people like the first Dark Souls because you start off and there's like 4 different directions you can go right away. It's
Yeah.
kind of overwhelming. You have to learn where you're going to get killed a ton and then where you're actually going to get killed only a few times, and that's the way you go. This one kind of balances giving you options, but not too many.
Right.
So I think the most paths I could take at any one time was 3 or 4, but then there were never less than 2 most of the time. So I felt like I could explore, but I didn't feel like I was being completely overwhelmed. So I think in that respect, it's also like structurally, this might be the game to get into also.
A lot of people in the chat are talking about how it's been running on PC. What have you been playing on mostly? What did the guys live stream on actually as well?
They live streamed on PC, I believe.
Okay.
I was playing on PS4, and I noticed some hiccups, but I don't know like whether I'd speak to that until it's closer to launch. I'm sure they'll
Right.
have like a patch right before it.
Yeah, well, Eric was saying that they have a day one patch, which is
Yeah.
hoping to resolve some of the
Sure.
frame ratey stuff. But
Yeah.
PS4 was looking all right.
There were definite frame rate issues,
Right.
which, like you said, the patch should hopefully fix that. PC, it's not locked at 30 like console is.
Okay.
It's, you can jack it up. The frame rate I noticed on people playing on PC, the frame rate looked completely fine. It looked great. Any other technical issues? They're just minor here and there, nothing huge. But yeah, I think pending that patch, I'd rather play it on PC.
Right.
Just because it's a game that requires precision. I don't want frame rate to ever be an issue. Like
Yeah.
that 1 second, I'm gonna miss a dodge or something.
Yeah, fair enough. Dark Souls 3 is out in Japan as of April 12th. Or sorry, March 24th. But it's out April 12th here in North America and in the rest of the world, in Europe as well.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world that isn't North America and Europe. So all you folks in
That's
New
it.
Zealand and Africa, look forward to Dark Souls 3 coming out in a couple of weeks. When is the review embargo dropping though?
A week from today. In
Oh,
the
really?
morning
Okay.
At some point.
All right, so next week, a week ahead of time. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much, Michael Mahardy, for
got
getting us the lowdown on this visual game.
Yeah.
Now we're here to talk about different types of games, not visual games, but
Real game.
real games. Is that what we're going to call them? That's the
Most
new tab on
dangerous
GameSpot. Real games.
Yeah.
Virtual reality, Peter Brown.
I'm in it right now. We're all in it.
Nope, you're not. This is the real world. This is not virtual reality. I know you spent most of last week with the stupid, dumb Oculus goggles on your face. I want to talk to you about that. First of all, did you have lines around your face this weekend?
Yes. No, it didn't last this weekend, but no, lines, you get lines in your face for a solid 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. It's like taking goggles off after doing a bit of like scuba diving.
It's almost exactly like taking goggles
There you
off.
go. Except no fishies. Although I'm sure they have the fishies VR demo as well.
Yes.
Coming soon. So you spent all last week, or what seems like the majority of last week, playing lots of different games on the Oculus Rift.
I actually focused on a small handful of games.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to go for the entire gamut of the launch lineup because we're trying to review some games. So in order to do that, I have to focus a little bit.
Yeah. So you were playing what games like Chronos, Eve Valkyrie?
Chronos, Eve Valkyrie, Lucky's Tale. I tried playing some Adrift before I got a sick. Sorry. Yeah.
I didn't even realize it was
Mike
a
really
joke
hated
until
that.
now. It's good. Zoned out for a
It
second.
wasn't a joke. It was a
That was
dumb
my-
thing to say.
So I guess I want to talk to you. You're like the litmus test, right? You're the person who's actually spent a bunch of time in it. Because most of the people I've talked to about this have spent 20 minutes on a show floor somewhere, or have spent an hour maybe at a developer's. So what were the like time frames you were using the Oculus for, and how did it feel coming out of that?
Yeah. Well, coming out of it definitely depends on what experience you're playing.
Right.
I mean, I used it anywhere from 5 minutes in a sitting to a couple hours at a time. And you certainly feel odd after a long session coming out of it because for one, your sense of presence has now shifted back to reality. And with that, looking at my watch was really strange because
Really?
the passage of time just it skewed slightly.
That's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's not.
How so?
It's not like I thought only 20 minutes had passed and it had been 2 hours,
Fucking
right?
existence.
Right, but I mean, it's on the order of maybe what felt like an hour was 2, like something like
Okay.
that. Like it can be pretty dramatic.
Is that the case
honestly.
with regular video games maybe as well? It just
Yes,
it feels more
Yeah, but
crazy.
But when you pair that feeling with what you get from VR, which is immersion, even if it's a game that is not like a first person experience, is trying to recreate reality, right? Like no matter what, anything you're playing in VR, that's all you're looking at. That's all
Right.
you can see, no matter where you turn your head.
Yeah.
So you are immersed in that experience, even if it's not the world that you're immersed in specifically.
So, like, I play a lot of Rocket League just randomly for 20 minutes here or there, or maybe like an hour here or there. And what I find is a lot of the time I'm thinking about just regular day-to-day stuff. Like I'm thinking about my taxes or thinking about what I'm going to do in the week. I'm not really actively involved in what's happening on the screen. In virtual reality, do you feel like you're sort of more engaged with the moment to moment, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Or does your mind still wander?
It's an escape.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I can't make it any simpler than that.
Yeah.
Like really, at least I felt very detached when I was playing a game that I was invested in mentally. All those things I was just describing a minute ago kind of inform this isolation that you have from yourself, even to a degree, because there's nothing to distract you. It really isn't.
And so, what's it like taking it off and then coming back? Is there any physical aspect to it that's trying to recenter yourself, or is it more of a when you come off a roller coaster and you're like, oh, okay, now feet back on terra firma and I'm used to this?
Things felt a little alien for the first minute or two, because you really are as much as it takes you to acclimate to VR, coming out of it requires acclimation as well. And I can understand how what I'm saying sounds like maybe extreme or somewhat contrived, but at least myself, I was very much into the experiences that I was engaging with, and coming out of them felt very strange. Very strange. Not in a bad way, and not in a way that lasted for a long time or gave me an existential crisis or anything like that, but it was definitely like, okay, this is actually my day. This is what I'm doing. I'm not following this fox around the woods. I'm not crawling through a dungeon, fighting monsters.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Not that I ever really believed I was, but I think you get what I'm saying.
So, because to me what you're talking about there sounds far more, impactful than maybe any one of the individual video game experiences. Like just the sort of the sense that exists around using virtual reality and the way in which it sort of messes with your psyche a little bit.
Yeah.
That almost sounds like what's more interesting than the games themselves. Is that why you're so excited about it?
At this moment, yes. The grander feelings that VR gives me is what has me interested in what it can do for gaming, but also what it can do for passive experiences like video. It's really important that people give this a try and really think about how it makes them feel before writing it off, because VR is freaking special. It's very different from everything we've done before. And I put up my review for Lucky's Tale today, which is the game that's bundled with every headset. It's really middling. It's not that great.
Third-person, colorful platformer.
Yeah,
right?
and you know what? It's fine. It's totally fine, but it doesn't really sell what's important about VR. And so I stated as much, and some commenter was saying oh, you really shouldn't be doing this because then people are going to think that VR isn't that great. You should really try to prop it up so everyone likes VR. And it's no, because the tech is there. If you read the Oculus Rift review, you can see why I think that's important. But the games right now still need to catch up. Eve Valkyrie, Oculus, or Chronos, those are both really great games, but they're still just kind of tiptoeing into the waters of what VR can do.
Yeah. Let's talk about the games a little bit, actually. There's a couple of questions in the chat about it. Obla Derek asks what racing games are for it. I know Project Cars supports
Yes.
the Rift. I saw Drew Scanlon at Giant Bomb standing up and sitting in the passenger side of his car and then looking at a headless version of himself.
Nice.
On a live stream. That sounds really exciting to me as a big racing fan.
Yeah.
Is that exciting to you?
I played a little bit of it at an event a while back,
Right.
and it was pretty good. For me, that's really, and the same with Lucky's Tale and Chronos. These are examples of taking traditional games and having VR sort of breathe a little bit of new life into them by changing the way that you interact with the space and the identity of whatever it is you're interacting with.
Sorry, go on.
No, but so I mean, I think there's going to be this initial wave that's kind of exciting where you play something familiar in VR and it feels different and new, but the same way we're tired of tech demos in VR now, we're going to get tired of experiences like, guess what? It's that favorite racing game of yours, and now you're in the front seat and you can look around. Like that's going to pass.
Yeah,
it's a gimmick right now.
I felt that way already when I played the Trackmania Turbo one in VR, because it's like, this is awful experience. Like, it's fun that you put this in. Yeah. This is dumb. But like, yeah, it wasn't exactly a very like the VR aspect of it didn't add anything at all. And in fact, talking about Adrift, which you reviewed on GameSpot, Mike, 5 out of 10, right?
Yep.
Didn't sound like it was particularly, it sounded like a game that was made as a decent tech demo for Rift, but then there wasn't really much else to it when you took it out of the Rift.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really much to it in the Rift either, it sounded like.
It's definitely worth playing in VR over PC if you have the option. It looks gorgeous on PC, especially when you come out of the Han 4, the space station you're exploring, and then you kind of look down on Earth, and then later on in the game you're on the other side of Earth, or you're looking down. It's nighttime over Asia. It's gorgeous, but the VR gives that sense of scale and height and kind of sense of place.
Yeah.
That really lends itself well to that game, especially because the sound design is really good, which is funny because there's not much sound to the game, but I think they nailed like that kind of environment, that vacuum you're in. But the game itself, despite some really good moments of great writing with the characters, it's a environmental clues and audio logs and whatnot kind of flesh out these characters who
floating simulator.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are great, but it's really tedious to get there. The movement at first is novel. You're using thrusters. It's kind of like Gravity, the movie, and it seems like that's telling you there's danger a lot because you're collecting these oxygen canisters, but those survival aspects feel forced. The movement after a while becomes kind of like tedious. You're moving very slowly. You get the boost later on, but once you get the boost, the distances you have to travel are increased. So it's almost like it just scales to the point of mitigating the boost.
Got it. Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to be. There's these survival aspects that didn't really do much for me, and then those discouraged me from exploring, which it also seemed to be telling me to do. And the movement itself was kind of also discouraging me from doing either of them.
Joey Hask in the Twitch chat says, no killer app that defines VR. That was something that a lot of people are saying at the moment, is that like, we need that one big game to do it. So if you could like pick the game that's at least out right now, Peter, which is...
Oh, that's out right now?
Yeah. What's the best version? What's the best game to work on VR right now?
That's
doesn't sound like it's a killer app anyway.
No, I mean, look, I'm gonna break one of your rules.
Okay,
and
go
I'm
for
gonna
it.
say the game that I think is gonna be most impactful is the one that you have played.
Right, the Oculus Touch demo.
The Oculus Touch demo, where you are engaging with someone who is in an entirely different physical space. I think that is the sort of experience that will make people just unequivocally agree that VR is special.
Yeah.
I mean, you were doing it. You were throwing a ball with somebody who was in a different room from you.
It was really strange. For those who don't know, this is essentially you are a wireframe head and fists and arms, because you've got the Oculus Touch controllers as well.
Yeah.
And you were essentially standing against another wireframe head and set of arms and talking, because it's all, you've got headsets as well, and interacting and picking up items and throwing them to the other person, juggling and playing all this stuff. And what the weirdest thing was that during this whole demo, we would keep like high-fiving, right? Because high-fiving is like a really simple version of touch that we do with this other individual who I had never actually met before. And then after the demo, he walked into the room, and the two of us, without even thinking about it, did a high five, and I was like, wait, we've actually never even been in the same room
That's
together.
That's really interesting.
But we've created this really crazy. We communicated even though we were never in the same room at all.
Yeah, and so I think one of the big challenges that Oculus is facing right now is it doesn't have those controllers to enable the sort of experiences that you're describing.
Right.
VR can add, not VR in general, Rift and its competitors can add things to games, but it really requires a lot more hardware to make virtual reality possible the way that people imagine it to be, which is that the total physical immersion. Vive has the advantage right now because it's shipping with those controllers.
Yeah.
They're available now. Oculus, I think we still have to wait a couple months for those touch controllers. And something like Job Simulator for Vive, it's a cute little game, but you are really interacting with things. Like, you get the sense that, like, yeah, I'm putting my laptop in the toaster and hitting go, and I'm photocopying like my telephone.
Donuts.
Yeah, like whatever. Like you actually are engaging with this stuff in a little bit of an extra sort of special way.
Yeah.
On top of just the visual immersion that VR supplies. So I don't think that there is a killer app for Rift right now. My favorite is Chronos.
Okay.
It brings back the fixed camera system that made games like Resident Evil have such great scene composition,
Yeah.
room to room. So a lot of opportunities for really great shots. And you are the camera. Where you look is where the camera looks around the room. And on top of that, it's got great gameplay. It's like really fun dungeon exploring with, the basic description is sort of Dark Souls type combat. And that game right now is the one game that I want to go back and keep playing, but it's only available in Oculus, so that's where I have to go play it.
That's interesting because this isn't what people would consider or what they would imagine necessarily when you say, oh, this great Oculus Rift game, because essentially your head is just taking the place of one of the camera points in Resident Evil. Like you're just looking around. What is it about that? Is there something inherent about the control and what that adds to the game, or is it just a good game that has this novel control or novel viewpoint?
Well, the viewpoint I wouldn't say is novel, though I do think I understand what you're saying. It's rare these days. It's a dying art, which I think is how I put it in one of our features. But what it really does is it allows, so even a scene like this right here, right? Where he was walking on that shelf as a really small character. If you had free range of the camera, you'd be throwing it all over the place, trying to look at objects. Like scenes in this game are composed in such a way to evoke certain emotions and feelings out of you. And that is really important. And so when you mix that with a little bit of added immersion that comes from the headset, it's a really great combination. Even if it doesn't dominate like what I think the game is, it's an undeniable part of it.
It's also like a big shift in perspective. I only played a little bit of Chronos, and it was quite a while ago. I was back in Germany last year. But one of the things that I sort of didn't realize about playing third-person games, because there's another one as well. What's the other third-person? The Snow
Edge of Nowhere.
Edge of Nowhere, yeah,
which is
Insomniac. Yeah.
Yes, which is another third-person game, but what I didn't really realize until I played these games was that it's like having the television in your face. So like the amount of detail, the perspective actually kind of feels more like first person in that you feel very intimately connected to the environment, even though it's in third person.
Yes, there is definitely that sense of intimacy. It's as simple as like playing Lucky's Tale. You're this fox, you're running around the woods. At one point, you get away from this really wide, expansive environment and you're walking through a hollow tree trunk.
Right.
And in that moment, I could feel the space around me like closing in, right? Like there was a definite sense, I don't have claustrophobia, but whatever, I could relate to that, that kind of feeling. And for, like a regular third person game that we all know and love, like VR can add a little bit to it, at least to bring you into the moment at hand in the game.
Resident Evil Oculus remake?
The Resident Evil team says they're working on VR.
Really?
Yeah. They started talking about that, I think, at TGS last year.
All right.
So, I mean, I would love that, but only if it's fixed camera, I think.
Umbrella core.
Exactly right. That's not the problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, one of the reasons the original Resident Evil was so good and one of the reasons the remake is still so beloved is because this technique has a lot of value, even though it was born from a place of technical deficiency. It actually is pretty sweet sometimes.
Yeah, they sort of stumbled into it by accident while trying to fix like a believability problem.
Yeah, so I would love to see Resident Evil go back to doing that, especially, I mean, sure, VR or otherwise.
Cool. Last point on this, when is the Vive going to be officially out and when will we have a review for that?
So I believe it starts shipping next week. Our review should be April 5th. Right now we have not the final consumer version.
Close to though, right?
I mean, it's essentially an analog, but we can't say for certainty. We should be getting ours any day, so hopefully, no problems there. We'll at least have the hardware review up on Tuesday.
Cool.
And again, with games to follow.
How are you feeling about each or the other right now? What's your preference after spending all that time with the Rift and having a decent amount with the preview version of the Vive?
I mean, cost isn't even a factor. I mean, I really appreciate how Vive has just more options open. So that if you want to be in one of those experiences where you can manipulate objects, where you can walk around your environment, you can do a little bit of that with Rift. I think it's like a 3x3 foot space.
Right.
But with Vive, you just have so much more room to move and interact with things. So right now, my preference is Vive.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Review next week. Thank you so much, Peter Brown. Let us know what you think about the future of the virtual reels in the comment box below. Mike Mahardy, what do you think about all this? Have you had much experience using either of them?
Yeah. So I went to an Oculus Rift recently the day before GDC started.
Okay.
And then all my demos at GDC were all Oculus or Vive.
Yeah, it seems to be mostly VR stuff, right?
Yeah. And then PlayStation, I did a couple, at PSX, I did a few PlayStation VR things, and I'm definitely sold. I'm on board. Adrift, like I said, was better in VR. I might go back and play a few more hours. I want to play Chronos at some point, definitely, because I played about 2 hours total of that, and it really, between like its Zelda influences, almost like Dark Souls like combat kind of, and then a few other mechanics Pete was telling me about, and the Resident Evil camera angles.
Well, what did
Can I
you
talk
just-
about one of these mechanics? Yeah.
Yeah,
go for
I
it.
was-
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so essentially, you are sent back in time to sort of save humanity. And this portal you go through, you can only
Chronons. Yeah.
you can only
Took us
enter
way
these
too long to
portals
figure that one out.
one
Yeah.
time per year.
Okay.
And when you die, you get sent back in time. So the theory is every time you die, you gain a year. For every
Right.
year you gain, you become more inherently proficient in magic,
Okay.
less inherently proficient with physical attacks.
Right.
So
Okay.
as you age, you sort of evolve as a character in more than just physical appearance. But then at the same time, that it kind of devalues that mechanic a little bit because you also gain perks for every decade you grow older. So you can
Just like real life.
just like real life. Yeah, you have AARP.
You can drink now.
It's like
Yeah.
tax brackets. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's got a really interesting death mechanic. But anyway, yeah, I wish that game was not just a VR game at the moment because I think more people really should play
Right.
Chronos.
And you could release this game as not a VR game, right?
Honestly, I think that there is a chance it is coming out on PC. I'm just not 100% sure, but I know right now it's just on Rift.
All right. Well, we're not talking about PC just for a second. Right now, we're going to talk about the PlayStation. Let's have a chat about the PlayStation
A chin
4.
wag?
A chin wag, if you will.
Garo.
About the PlayStation 4.5. Our good friend over at Kotaku, Patrick Lebig, broke a story last week saying that there was word basically around GDC, and they had a bunch of sources, unnamed sources, that said that there was a upgrade coming to the PlayStation 4, or an upgraded version of the PlayStation 4, which was going to support have a Meteor GPU in it, and that would probably support 4K resolution. That this had probably some sort of tie-in into the abilities of the restrictions around the PlayStation VR. And since then, there's been a Wall Street Journal report basically saying the same, sort of corroborating that. Like, it's so funny. The original news piece about this had, information that apparently like Keza McDonald from Kotaku UK had just overheard two people in line
Right.
as well
Yeah.
at GDC, literally talking about this PlayStation 4.5, whether that's a code name or not, and how it was going to fit into Sony's plans. First of all, initial reactions to this, Peter, what do you think? It's been a long time since we've seen a console had an iteration. Like, I can only think of the 32X as like the latest one that I can think of. Is this something? Is it a good idea? Is it strange?
It's strange, but it's a good idea. I mean, I think it's not, from what everyone is saying right now, it's not going to impact current PlayStation 4 owners. There are not plans for exclusive games based on the current rumors, right? It's planned for cross-compatibility. While I can understand some people might feel slighted, like, oh, what the hell? I bought an old PS4, now I have to buy a new one if I want to have like the best graphics that PlayStation 4, can do.
Welcome to PC ownership.
Yeah, we're all gonna. Yeah, exactly. And also, you've had a PlayStation 4 for a while, and you know what? You still have the same games, and if visuals are that important, like that's your imperative to have to pay for it. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
Do you think they need it? Because we're talking about they like to be able to say, oh, this console generation will run for 10 years, and we're 3.5, 4 years in at the moment. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are already kind of flagging a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think PlayStation 4 needs this?
I do. I think if you look at TVs right now,
Right.
everything is a freaking 4K TV. This thing is not. There's no way they're going to be able to get a decent priced console that does 4K gaming.
I mean, that's literally like it's 4 times the resolution of 1080, right?
Not quite. Not
Okay.
quite. It's less than that. But essentially, like for video is a very important part of PlayStation. And what is going on here?
The PS5 better be able to fly, says Samuel Graham. I hate your creepy face.
Thank you.
That's a benefit of the podcast version.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. I don't understand why people would have an issue here unless they feel salty about spending money. But, I think it really comes down to being 4K capable for video more than anything else.
Yeah. Mike, what's your thought on this? Because I aimed at, I've been playing recently Quantum Break, and we'll get to Xbox One in a little while. Apparently that game runs around 720
Danny, it's temporal 1080p
Right.
because they take 4 720p frames and.
But it's the
Duh.
best game I've seen looking on an Xbox One. So like resolution to me,
Sunset Overdrive, man. Come on.
Okay, yeah, that game looks pretty good actually. Good contrast, makes a real pop.
Sorry.
But I've never really understood a lot of the heat behind this like fixation, specifically resolution. When you look at like you can have a high resolution game, it looks like complete fucking ass because of the other effects that are working on it. What do you think about this? Are you a PlayStation 4 owner?
Yeah, if it's gonna help the VR experience, and because the PlayStation VR, I think like most people, it's the most affordable one at this point. The option, not factoring in if you need a new console and the Move controllers and everything, which I'm excited for PSVR just because I'd like to see that might be ostensibly the first one I have in my living room. If it can help in that respect, then I'm on board for it. I don't feel slighted at all. Like one of my roommates was saying he did at first, but then I was like, well, you had 3 years of that? I think it's like 3 years with the PS4. That was an investment. You've had 3 years of a lot of good games. Like there are a bunch of games that you got to play in that time period. And like I said, there's not going to be any exclusives when the 4.5 or whatever they end up calling it is going to be out.
Hasn't this existed in handheld gaming as well for years? Like every time there's a new revision of the DS, like sometimes they do make games which only work on 3DS or whatever, but like.
Well, you saw Nintendo do that with Hyrule Warrior Legends on 3DS.
Right.
Or, sorry, Xenoblade Chronicles was exclusive to new 3DS. But then recently they spit out Hyrule Warriors Legends, and that was not exclusive, and people were kind of upset with how it ran in the regular 3DS. But Nintendo hardware is generally pretty underpowered anyway, especially for a port of a game from an HD console.
Do you see Sony doing something like if you trade in your own PlayStation 4, we'll give you an upgrade for like $150 or something?
I see GameStop doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see Sony caring one way or the other.
You don't think like the PR battle over this that they might bend a knee and just say, okay, right, because we're doing, because if it is literally just a GPU upgrade, I mean, wouldn't the wonderful world of the internet be like, well, if it's only one part of the machine, then you can.
Console gaming is the weirdest sector of the electronics market in the world. Everything else has so many different variants and SKUs and this, that, and the other. I think, we're used to that in everything but consoles. I think people are going to just understand and get used to it. Maybe they'll cry in the beginning, but I don't think Sony is facing an uphill battle here. I think, maybe it'll be a little blip on the radar of people who are upset, but that'll go away pretty fast.
All right. Thank you both for telling me your thoughts about the PlayStation 4.5. A little bit of a shift of gears here. It's interesting we're talking about the PlayStation 4 having an upgrade because it is the more powerful and the console of the two that are currently, I guess, fighting with each other at the moment that has the sort of superiority when it comes to graphical processing. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Xbox One. Phil Spencer said you will actually see us come out with a new hardware capability during this generation at an investor call a couple of months ago. This has been something that he sort of like touched on a couple of times.
He said during a generation.
During a generation.
Not this generation.
Not this generation.
Correct.
So do you not think that the Xbox One being the console of the two that most people would say is probably requiring an upgrade, do you think that they'll go a similar route?
I think that they certainly could. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Especially because they exist in the PC space where this is something that they're pretty used to, right?
Yes, and look, both of the GPUs in each of the consoles are created by AMD. Their manufacturing processes in terms of how small and cool they can make chips have improved quite a bit. I believe both consoles started at 28 nanometers, and now they're down to like 14 nanometer manufacturing processes.
Yowza.
So the same hardware developer working with both partners. I mean, it stands to reason that they will approach Microsoft if Sony has approached them or they've approached Sony. It just seems to make sense to me. I don't see why they wouldn't.
The other thing about this is, I guess, is that they've sort of unified the Windows platform as well, or at least that's the direction they've been going in for a little while. And the Xbox originally was always this big plan to try and get the PC space in the living room to own that space, which it seems really weird that in 2016 we still don't have a real leader there. In fact, it's kind of been broken out into all these other things like Steam machines and for a while there, I thought shuttle PCs might be the way it all goes. Do we start to see the walls break down then between, because if the Xbox One essentially becomes a upgradable console, then it's almost only different to PC in branding at that stage.
Oh,
right? No?
Services, my friend.
Services like what?
PC gamers don't need Xbox Live.
Oh yeah, good point.
I mean, you're gonna if those two really become unified, Microsoft will have to back off some of their their practices to make money off of consoles, which are traditionally sold really close to cost or under cost. So unless they do that, I don't think they could bring both markets together and make both parties happy.
But maybe they're trying to offset that with what they're doing with Quantum Break, with the whole you can only purchase this via the Windows Store. They're trying to like take some sort of control.
It's the same with Gears of War 10. I mean, yeah, there might be part of that, but no one's happy about that. I think if anything, that's going to turn people off.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at something like that and you immediately say, but Steam does it this, like there's already a better example out there than what they're trying to do on PC. And just like games for Windows Live, I can't see this effort lasting long enough to actually lead to any meaningful positive change for Microsoft. It's only going to be a detriment over time.
Mike, do you own an Xbox One?
Yep.
Would you be looking forward to an upgraded version of it, or I mean, if the PlayStation 4 ends up getting a GPU push, then what does that even? The Xbox One, the graphic comparison videos are going to be real fun then, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I would be up for it. There are a few games I've noticed. Like most of the time when I choose between PS4 and Xbox One, I go PS4 just because the majority of my friends I play with are on that. It's not always a graphical consideration, but I have to imagine if Microsoft was thinking about doing something this generation, not that that's what they said, the whole PlayStation 4.5 might be kind of the impetus for them to consider it even more strongly. Yeah, I'd be up for it. I don't know that I would be, jumping at the gun to get it right away, only because, like I said, I like Quantum Break looks great on the Xbox One. I think we're playing like Rise of the Tomb Raider DLC later. I've never had like a situation where I said I really wish I was playing this on PS4 just because it would look that much better.
Right.
In that case, I would probably just go to PC if I needed that much of an upgrade.
I had a bit of that over The Witcher because I saw people playing on PlayStation 4 and I was playing on the Xbox One, and it actually did, like, I could notice that it was sharper looking on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Of course, on PC, like, I couldn't even look at the PC version. Right. So I was like, that's disgusting to me.
I have a wild theory.
Okay, go for it.
Both companies are potentially planning this because the Nintendo NX will be more powerful than the current iterations. No, I'm not joking.
That'd be great.
No, dude, that's 100% a possibility.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That this is a counterpunch to Nintendo's swing. Yeah?
What?
I mean, if Nintendo came out with the most powerful console in the world, that'd be quite a statement.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right.
That's all. I just wanted to throw that out there because there have been rumors that they are working towards a device that is the most powerful. And if that's true, these companies have to do it.
Could we be looking at an E3 where we see 3 consoles in it?
Oh, I hope so. That would be so much fun. I want a wild and crazy E3 so bad, and I don't want it to be just about VR. I really don't want it to be just about VR.
Well, GDC was maybe a bit too much on the VR side. And obviously that's not like
so was CES
consumer
the past
posting.
2 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We'll have to see. Interesting times ahead. We'll talk about
Nintendo.
E3 already. How far are we from E3? 2 months? 2 months and change. March, April, May, June. 3 months. 3 months. 3 new consoles could be coming. Let us know what you're excited for. Is it the PlayStation 4.5, the Xbox 1.5?
They're not going to call it 0.5 because then that screws them up if they need to put out another iteration 3 years from
0.6.
now. What happened to 0.2, 1 through 4?
What do they call it? The 4.2, 4.1?
The 4K. And then they
But if it doesn't do 4K, then it's going to be
it'll do 4K video.
Oh, God.
And they call it the Xbox 2. Why not?
The Xbox 360
If you're talking about
Xbox 2.
blending the identity of what Microsoft gaming is, then Xbox 2 is just as good as anything else they could come up
God,
with.
if they call it Xbox 2, that's the worst thing in the world. That's awful. The fourth Xbox is the Xbox 2.
Can we make a bet if this comes out, whether it's called that or not?
Okay, yeah. What's the bet?
Do I have to shave my beard again?
Oh, but I like your beard.
Okay.
When did you shave your beard
you shave
last
your
time?
beard and I'll shave my head.
For a $500 donation.
Wait. I want to shave something. Why can't I get on this?
Do you want to shave?
There's
You
more
look
than
like
2
a
body
dog?
parts,
Nuts.
Mike.
You like a poodle? Nobody?
All right, you gotta buy the poodle.
Anyway.
I don't know. A 3-way bet complicates things.
Okay, I'm washing my hands. I'll let you two do it.
Okay. You shave your beard, I'll shave my head.
Okay.
If it's called Xbox 2, you shave your beard. No,
No,
I'll
no,
shave
no.
my beard.
You shave your head.
I'll shave my head.
Yeah.
And if it's not, you'll shave your beard.
Phil Spencer.
You
if you're
really think
listening.
it's called Xbox 2?
This is the sort of bet that I like to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Phil Spencer, if you're watching, I've got a whole. I'll come up with an Excel spreadsheet of better names than the Xbox 2. You can take your pick. If you're watching this on demand, please put your thoughts in the comments. Would you like an Xbox 2? Would you like a PlayStation 4.5? What other alternative names would be better than
Xbox
the Xbox
U.
2? The Xbox U. Oh god, they would call it that. They would totally call it that.
No.
Would you play baked into it?
Oh god.
God damn it. Put it in the comments below.
What if they completely change up the naming convention, like in general, like the X cube or the X
X-Cube.
Yeah, just the X sphere.
Like the X cubed?
Yeah.
No.
All right. I'm just trying to get in on a bet. Neither of you are having
Xbox
it.
4.
All right, fine, whatever.
Xbox. Then they call it the
You
Xbox
two
3.
What
keep
else
me
could
at the
they-
kid table.
What else could they call it?
Xbox. I guess the PlayStation 1 was the PS1 was the other version of it. But that was only a style
Yeah.
thing. That wasn't like a
Right.
functionally any different.
Well, they took out the serial port, Danny, so I couldn't put my Game Shark in there anymore.
Yeah, but you could get that screen and stick it on the front and have a portable PlayStation.
I have that screen.
Do you really?
I do.
It's not very portable.
It's not.
It's an optical disc drive, Peter.
Whatever.
It's like one of those portable record players.
Yeah.
The wind blows and suddenly the music's going twice as fast. Okay, we better wrap this one up. Mary Kish, in about 35 minutes' time, is going to play the best named DLC I've ever heard. Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Cold Darkness Awakened. You didn't come up with that? The Cold Darkness Awakened. The Cold Darkness Awakened. That's what it's called.
What was the last one? The Baba Yaga?
What was the-
No, I'm serious.
Yeah, I
I'm
think it
pretty
was
positive that's what
something
it
Mary,
was.
what was the last Rise of the Tomb Raider DLC called? Baba Yaga.
The Cold Darkness Awakens.
Oh, yeah,
No,
Baba Yaga was
Awakened.
better.
It's not even Awakens. I know. The Cold Darkness Awakened. I don't think there's a
Sounds like a
comma.
bad Star Wars spinoff.
The Cold Darkness, comma, Awakened? The Cold Darkness Awakened. It's called The Cold Darkness Awakened.
Yeah. There's not much tweaking you could do to that title to make it good.
No. There
You
you
just
go.
call it The Cold Darkness.
Or just the darkness
The
awakens.
Darkness.
The Darkness. Yeah, Jackie Estacado's
Wake
back.
up! There's new DLC. Just
Yeah.
call it that.
Lara Croft versus Jackie Estacado in this. That'd be pretty good.
What if like Ralph
Reptiles.
Macchio is the final boss?
Who?
He's like the villain in Karate Kid.
Oh, really?
The actor that plays the villain.
Where did that come from?
I have no idea.
Okay.
You
Great.
said
He just had a mini
you
stroke.
said Ricky
and then he
Estacado
goes-
or someone.
Maybe if we get the PlayStation 4K, then when you play The Darkness, you can watch To Kill a Mockingbird in 4K. How about that?
Goodbye,
How about
everybody.
that? All right, we're almost done here. Mary's going to play the Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Cold Darkness Awakened pretty soon. Before we sign off, though, Peter, what are you working on GameSpot this week?
Quantum Baker.
Quantum Bake. Get those croutons. Quantum Bake. We got Quantum Bake going.
Damn it! I really want croutons now. Quantum Break review. Review of Chronos. Vive review. Gosh, that's it.
It's a bunch of stuff.
There's probably more. I just don't want to think about it.
No worries. Michael Mahardy, what about yourself? Dark Souls 3 et al.
Yeah, Dark Souls 3. Gonna play Doom. I think that might be next week. Working on some new project, which we should be able to announce like tomorrow, I think. I don't know. And then mainly though, Saturday night,
He's excited.
Syracuse Orange,
Oh,
Final
Jesus
Four.
Christ.
Boy.
Syracuse,
go.
Syracuse
Yeah.
Citrus.
No, not the Syracuse Citrus.
Great.
Please don't do that.
That's Mad March, March Madness. Mad Marchness, I was about to
yes.
say.
So
March Madness. All
I'm
right.
gonna watch us play UNC. Hopefully
Unts.
we don't get destroyed like I expect us to.
Okay.
But whatever. That's what I thought about the last 3 games.
You guys have positive vibes out there, man.
Yeah.
Don't you know how the universe works?
Like
Have
good
you not watched The
vibrations.
Secret?
Oh, I've read it.
God.
I browsed through that thing.
This is awful.
Where is
Uh,
this going?
But yeah,
know.
Dark Souls 3.
Well done. Well, yeah. Best of luck
8 o'clock
in the
on
basketball.
CBS.
8 o'clock. Okay. Well, that's
Dark Souls
actually
3 is going to be on CBS 8 o'clock.
8
so no.
o'clock. New they're running a trailer for Dark Souls 3 during the March Madness
Yeah.
finals.
No.
Not the finals.
They did that with Halo 3 during,
Yeah.
what was that, the Super Bowl?
All right, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much, Peter Brown, Mike Mahardy, for coming on. Thank you to Richard Lee carrying his ridiculous fishing rod camera thing. I love it. It's amazing. You're a champion. Me and him are heading down to Blizzard tomorrow to record some fun stuff. So There'll be more about that on the site in about a month's time. Mary Kish and Eric Tay, Dom Hork in the back as ever, putting on a great show. Thank you so much to everyone in the Twitch chat for hanging out and sending in their questions. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube and GameSpot.com. And thank you so much for subscribing to us on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever the hell. Make sure to rate and review us. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Mary will be back in a little while with Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Cold Darkness Awakened. We're also going to do an Oculus Rift VR stream on Friday. So we'll see you then. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and enjoy a great week of video games. Adios.